Yeah, so far the Amazing Digital Circus, what we have known is there is a girl transformed from our world into the digital circus world, and then somehow she's trapped there. And then if you kind of like have have mental breakdown, you kind of like turn into a monster, and then there is escape. There is an exit, but the exit is like a back room maze that lead to a void, and then probably there's something into the void. But here is film theory talking about digital circus is lying to us, but lying about what? Let's watch it.
Oh my god.
In case you aren't caught up with this one, this is the latest series from the creative geniuses over at Glitch Productions. This one was written, produced, and directed by Gooseworks, a talented artist who also composed music for both Has Been Hotel and Hell of a Boss. And their creativity and experience really come through with this one. I gotta say, you guys went crazy recommending this one to us across comments, GT Live, and our subreddit. And it's pretty darn easy to see why. Bane, who according to the show's website is a quote, wacky AI, and all of the humans are just
the exit. I was having so much trouble figuring out what to put on the other side and ended up never quite finishing it.
And more or less, that's where we leave the colorful cast of the Amazing.
Wait, Crane is an AI, but it doesn't sound like an AI to me. Like really, it doesn't really sound like an AI at all. It sounds like a human being behind that, like a really lazy principal or something.
Very similar to how a game developer would create world spaces. Plus, when POMNI first enters the world, she says this.
I put on some weird headset.
Oh yeah, it's a VR thing. Yes, it's like
again, directly
like the entire SAO thing.
Game.
Oh, thank you for the headset. Appreciate it.
Transported into the world of the digital circus. All of that checks out and should be pretty darn obvious to the casual viewer.
Yep.
But what you might have missed is the fact that this is set in the late 1990s and not the present day, like you might expect from something talking about using VR headsets. And there is a lot of circumstantial evidence that points us to this conclusion.
No, I don't think so, Matpat, because we know very little about POMNI and the rest of the crew. Like it's true that they never mentioned about cell phone, TikTok, YouTube and stuff, but we can't just like simply assume they're coming from 1990 because they couldn't even remember their names. They only remember the last thing that they did before they got transferred.
First of all, basically all the tech that we see throughout the series seems to be pulling straight from the 90s. Anytime we see a computer in the show, it's always the white boxy styled CRT monitors and large
it's just a game choice, Matpat. What do you say? What are you talking about?
Back in the 90s and early 2000s. And this is both in the actual episode and in the off-site material as well. In that same Wacky Watch commercial, we see a real-life computer with the same old-school design. What's more, the beginning of this Wacky Watch video says that this was an old tape recovered on a date that's censored. And given the degradation on that tape, it implies that not only is this video old, but it was also recovered in the past as well. But this goes beyond just the tech that's used in the series. Many of the characters and iconography from the show are very reminiscent of popular characters and ideas from the late 90s and early 2000s. POMNI's gesture design takes a lot of cues from Sega's old Nights into Dream series. Jax shares design inspiration and a similar name with Max, the rabbit from the Sam & Max games. Bubble clearly takes cues from Super Mario's Chain Chomps. Jax and Gangle were both inspired by characters like Poppy the Performer, an old Japanese 3D animated series, while Kane and the Digital Circus setup very reminiscent of the villain and plot of I Have No Mouth and I Must Scream, a short story by Harlan Ellison adapted into a point-click adventure game in 1995. Anyway you slice it, it's very clear that the creators want the show to have the same 90s vibe that we're all so nostalgic for right now. But you might be thinking, hold on, they're talking about VR headsets here. That's a modern thing, right?
Yeah.
Wouldn't this thing just be inspired by the 1990s rather than set in the 1990s? That's a pretty good call-out. A lot of advances in virtual reality technology have only been made across the last decade, especially when you're talking about
Bikone, what's up?
Mean that VR technology didn't exist.
Yes, we are watching a bit of a lore video right now.
Black and red wireframe circus.
Oh wait, hang on. I didn't know about we already have like VR headset like back in 1990.
Simple flat textures, rudimentary shapes and polygons. There's not a lot of detail here, but that's for good reason. These headsets, they couldn't handle a lot of detail. True story, I actually have some first-hand experience with these rudimentary headsets. The Great Lakes Science Center in Cleveland, Ohio actually had a special exhibit on VR technology in its basement when I was a kid, and it blew my mind. With the amount of wires and cables these things took to run, it felt like you were jacking into the Matrix, and you had to wait 45 minutes to put on one of these headsets, but all of a sudden you were dropped into a video game. It was simple, I was walking flying through a purple field with a bunch of green triangular mountains in the background, but it was effective, and it captured my imagination for decades since. So much so that even though it was a 5-minute experience that happened in my life like 2 decades ago, I still remember it vividly to this very day. Anyway,
yes.
Matpat childhood stories aside, the long and short of all of this, everything that we see in the series is pointing to this taking place in the past and not in the present. All of this has already happened from our perspective. We're just watching the events of the game unfold. So now that we know that we're in a 1990s video game here, let's dig a bit deeper, shall we? Theory number 2, POMNI helped create this hell simulation that they're currently stuck in. It's a pretty bold claim, so what would make me say that? Well, a couple of things. Firstly, one of the scenes that really jumped out to me while I was watching and rewatching the pilot was the sequence where POMNI's running through the back rooms on the other side of the exit door. At one point, she enters a more traditional looking office space with computers and cubicles before stopping and staring at one desk in particular. This is played as a big moment. We linger on this shot for a long time.
This shot is like, this is a money shot. As in like, this is like, oh wait, there is a VR headset on the table. I think Matpat is actually onto something. What? I didn't realize that there was a VR headset like on the computers. Oh,
classic horror-esque dolly zoom hits both the desk and POMNI before she has herself a psychological break. The lights start to flicker and she cackles uncomfortably before running on. The whole thing is really menacing and off-putting and clearly meant to leave us with a big impression. Why? Well, because this desk isn't just some simulation that came cooked up in the back rooms. It's based on a real place in the real world of this universe outside of the simulation. A place that we actually see in the episode. At the very end, right before the credits roll, we zoom out of the circus and through the void, revealing that all of this has been taking place inside of a computer. That makes sense.
Wait. Yeah, it's the same thing. This entire setup is exactly the same as in the bedroom, but it has more realistic, what do you call this, textures to it.
Who is Cosmo?
Cosmo, you guys are breaking Cosmo. Cosmo is the little guy down there. The white color thing. Yo, what's up? Exactly the same computer. Yeah, it's just that the one that POMNI was seeing in the back room, it was like the digitalized version of it. And this is the real life versions.
We've already established that this right here is a big old simulation. But take a look at the computer and the desk. It's the exact same setup that we saw earlier in the episode in the backroom section. Desk and computer setup existing both in the simulation and in the real world is already a pretty interesting point, but why then would it break POMNI? What causes her to go off the deep end and start laughing? Well, I think that's a bit down the line.
Oh, yeah. I think that actually makes sense, because at the end, while they're having like a feast, POMNI just sitting there menacingly just thinking, what the heck have I done?
POMNI needs to escape the Matrix.
POMNI to escape the Matrix. yes, exactly. POMNI have been captured into the Matrix.
Possibilities. You see, Cain and Abel are a pair of brothers who are the sons of Adam and Eve, with Cain ultimately killing his brother and creating the first ever murder in the world. Anyway, you know how we love ourselves a good biblical reference here, and I just wanted to mention it in case we get more clues in future episodes. But something we do have more than enough to say about, theory number 3, all the characters aren't actually humans trapped inside the digital circus. Instead, they're all digital copies of the brains of humans who put on these headsets, cloned and then forced into the simulation. Now this is a pretty big swing. I mean, POMNI's first line of the series is practically, oh no, I'm a human who put on a headset and now I'm trapped here. And then Cain follows it up with this.
My, it appears a new human has entered this realm!
Human. He calls her a human. And that actually lines up with what we've seen with the official synopsis, explicitly calling POMNI and the others humans, in contrast to Cain being an AI. Quote from that synopsis, a woman gets trapped in a crazy...
But Cain is an AI doesn't really mention in the show. It's only appeared in a Wikipedia, right?
Virtual world along with 5 other humans, and are now subject to the whims of wacky AI and their own personal traumas. Plus,
a woman travels in a crazy virtual world alongside with 5 other humans and are subject to... Oh, this is a synopsis.
I just personally like the image of a bunch of people strapped into these VR headsets a la Sword Art Online. But all of that being...
Yo, Kana... Duck, thanks so much for follow. Appreciate it. Welcome in.
Said, I believe that there's a lot of evidence pointing towards these characters being computerized clones rather than actual humans. For instance, as I mentioned above, POMNI starts going a bit crazy when she sees her desk from the real world in the circus's back rooms. But think, what was actually on that desk? A headset. Pretty clearly a headset that is not on any human's head. And that's not just a thing in the simulation, it's also on the desk in the real world too that we see in the final shot of the pilot. If there's a human trapped in the Digital Circus here with a headset firmly planted on their head that they can't get off. Shouldn't they, you know, be stuck there with the headset on their head? Given the little that we have to go off of right now, it makes more sense that POMNI put on the headset, had her consciousness copied into the game, and then she just took off the headset to go home. Meanwhile, POMNI in the game can't take it off because she's not a flesh and blood human anymore. She's a digital copy whose memories begin the moment the headset was put on. And even if we're wrong and this desk isn't POMNI's, all the other characters went through this exact same process when they first joined, as Jax hinted at when he sarcastically said,
How do I take this headset off?
Just keep grabbing at it. That works for all of us.
they all tried the exact same thing, and it didn't work for any of them. They're all digital copies grasping at a VR headset that isn't there anymore. But you know the thing that really convinced me of this theory? The mannequins. Yeah, did you notice these guys? All throughout the episode, we see several artist mannequins populating the circus. You know, these are the things that artists will sometimes buy to help them get references for poses. Most prominently, we see them in the restaurant with Kane and Bubble acting as background characters. But why would they matter? Well, we know that Kane can create NPCs.
Kane, is this one of your NPCs or is this a new sucker?
So maybe these mannequins are just random nameless characters that Kane made up to fill in the circus. Maybe, but that just doesn't sit right with me. First off, the dolls are clearly capable of emotions. We see one get upset when POMNI interrupts it taking a bath, silently screaming at POMNI until she slams the door. There's something more going on here than just these things being background extras. Take a look at this. When Ragatha is showing POMNI to her room, there are several other doors for other characters in the background. This is actually a great piece of world building. We see that each of the current characters have themselves their own rooms, as well as several other characters that we haven't met yet. There's this colorful one that I can't quite make out, what looks to be a pinkish purple goo monster, some sort of cute doggo.
Wait, hang on. Those are the one that got abstract, or the one that already got killed?
Green and orange anteater looking guy, a black queen chess piece that I'm gonna guess is named Queenie, seems to be Kinger's counterpart, implying that he didn't come into the simulation alone. Regardless, all of these portraits have giant red X's over them, and that checks out. These are likely characters that have abstracted in the past, just like Kaufmo did. We even see other abstracted creatures in the cellar when Kane banishes.
They have a bunch of them.
Along with these past and current characters, we also see several doors with blank mannequins on them.
Yeah,
Not
that's
just one,
mannequin.
but multiple doors. If I had to guess what's going on here, when a new human enters the game, these rooms transform into one that's appropriate for them, and the mannequin on the door transforms into their character. And what's more, I believe that there's a mannequin in the game that also transforms into that character. Right now, they're placeholders, but they get molded into these human copies whenever someone new puts on the headset, and their brain gets scanned into the system. That would fit thematically with the idea of the mannequins to begin with. They're supposed to be used as references and then turned into something real when you're using them for your artwork. That would also fit with the fact that they're on the doors of all these empty rooms, and the characters being scanned clones of human brains would fit the fact that they can't take off their headsets, despite us seeing a headset not being worn at a desk that is clearly meant to be POMNI's. It just all fits with what we've seen from the series so far. In short, the series is gaslighting us. It isn't about a bunch of humans trapped in a simulation.
I have never seen this show before, but I would smash POMNI.
Can you not? We do not know how old is POMNI. Do not just simply smash, my guy.
A bunch of human consciousnesses that have been scanned into an AI system and then mapped onto blank mannequin bodies, where the computer can then simulate their human behavior and push their buttons to the breaking point, learning the weaknesses of the human psyche. And then, when they've had too much and abstract out of the system, well, then you just boot up another new simulation and try again. There is no exit door, just an endless loop of torturous tests run by Kane as he tries to understand the human experience. Just like a real circus, all of it is just a big performance. But
you know what? That is kind of like the YouTube algorithms, you know? I feel like Matpat has kind of like solved a bunch of like the theory that I think is quite fascinating is the one that that say POMNI is one of the coder or probably is the developer of the entire Amazing Digital Circus. I think that, yeah, I feel that is what exactly happens. I just feel like I want to watch more of. I feel like if we watch it again now, we will get so much more information out of it. But I guess that is all the theory crafting we have for now for these videos, because for what do you call this? For the Amazing Digital Circus, they only have one episode right now. Anyways, it's time to jump into some games, you know.